All right, so two major types of charities, the public and private. With public, that was those 501c3 charities that we looked at, and you can see how much money they're actually using to support the cause that you or your client might be interested in supporting. With the private foundations, they're not going to have all that information up there. We have two types of private foundations, operating and non-operating. Private foundations are typically set up by maybe a single donor, that wealthy family that wants their kids to have this cool title, and maybe they're doing good for the world, but the only requirement for them is for the operating, they are giving 85% of net income to a 501c3, to some sort of cause that we identified as charitable. It's up to the organization or the individual to verify that the place you're contributing to is actually a charity. With that non-operating foundation, they're kind of doing whatever they want, but it's for that cause. And with that net income, same thing for the public charity. That's why we want to look at what their admin costs are. How much are they giving in salaries? How much are they spending to get a dollar? How much are they actually supporting the cause? So that 85% that the operating foundation is giving to a charity could be parents gave $1 million and 800,000 of that goes to pay salaries for their children, pay salaries for whatever support staff there is, for the operation, whatever else, and only 100,000, 200,000, whatever actually goes to the cause. The same thing for those public charities. They could be spending 80% of their stuff on administrative costs and only a small portion actually going to the cause. What are these qualifying organizations? This is for the 501c3s. The obvious ones are churches. So they pass around the plate, donate something there. That would count as something that you can put on your tax return. This goes back to the idea of, are you itemizing deductions anyway? Is it going to be more than the 13,000-ish or so? So that is automatic for everyone. So we're not able to deduct what we give to charities unless we're itemizing deductions. Otherwise, our standard deduction is going to take care of this. So parks, college, universities, you could create a scholarship for not a specific person, but you could create it specific enough that it would go to the person you want, depending on how unique that person would be at the university. So different types of organizations, and then others that aren't going to allow you to take those dollars away. What can we give? What charities love the most is cash, because they can spend it on whatever they want. They can pay their operating costs, they can help the needy, they can do whatever it is that they're doing. Easy to use cash in different ways that's going to accomplish their goals. For the donor, these appreciated assets, or that we expect to appreciate more in the future, maybe both, are great because now that's going to get it out of our estate. I'm going to take the deduction now, and I'm not paying capital gains. It's cool, here you go, charity. And then the charity doesn't have to pay taxes because they're doing that cause, that education, that scientific, preventing cruelty to animals, helping children, scientific something that is one of those qualifying reasons. IRAs and qualified retirement plans. So with a Roth IRA, I did not have required minimum distributions. With a traditional IRA or these qualified plans, once I turned 70 and a half, the first April of that year, or maybe twice, depending on when my birthday was, I may have to do April plus December 31st, I have to take a required minimum distribution. That required minimum distribution is based on my age and how long the IRS thinks I'm going to live. So they've got that life table that we've looked at. I'm going to divide the December 31st account balance by that number, so 26.5 for 70 something, and that's the amount that I must take out based on the account balance. That has to come out of that qualified plan or traditional IRA. Those dollars are going to add to my ordinary income. So if I'm in a lower tax bracket of retirement, cool, I got some tax deferred growth, and maybe I can use it. But if I don't need that, and I don't want this ordinary income to maybe mess with something else that I'm receiving, so maybe my Social Security would become taxable. Up to 85% of that could be taxable, depending on where my ordinary income is. With charity, I can say, okay, instead of me taking this required minimum distribution, I want that to go directly to the charity. So I'm not going to be able to claim it as a charitable contribution. I'm not going to be able to have this as ordinary income, so it ends up being a wash, as if I were having that ordinary income reduced by this charitable amount. So it just doesn't come into my taxes, so it saves me money. So if you have clients that are of the age where they must take required minimum distributions, but they don't need those dollars and they don't want to have some issues with their health insurance, have to start paying more for Medicare Part D, B, then we can give it directly to a charity of whatever their choice is. We're going to do the research and make sure it actually supports those people's other assets. So the example I gave in class was the samurai sword to the church. That's an unrelated use. The church isn't going to use the samurai sword as a samurai sword. If anything, they're going to sell it or something. But if I donated that samurai sword to a museum that was going to display it as a samurai sword, I can deduct the full value, the fair market value, the day I give it to them. Services, I cannot deduct my time. That's just freely given. I could deduct I gave the example, my mom goes to retirement nursing homes and she'll do different activities with the seniors there to keep their brains working, and the things that she buys at Hobby Lobby or Michael's to set up those activities, arts and crafts, whatever, she could deduct that cost. Probably not going to meet that standard deduction that we have, and you have to itemize, but she cannot deduct the time it takes her to go to Hobby Lobby to find these things, to put together the activities, to work with the seniors. But she could deduct her gas if she wanted to, the cost that it takes to provide all this stuff. When we get into these leverage gifts, we are maybe looking at certain times of year. Some organizations will say, hey, we will match whatever your contribution is up to a certain amount. So if I give $100, they're going to give $100. So I'm able to add more to that. We've talked about these charitable trusts. We'll get into those a little bit more in the next few slides. Insurance, we had 3 different ways to give to the charity. Through insurance, where maybe I give them a policy that's already paid up. And maybe they have to continue paying some premiums. If it's not, maybe I'm donating them cash every year to pay the premium. We could have the life insurance policy with a revocable beneficiary where I have it listed as a charity, but I can change that later. So I'm not going to be able to deduct that, because I can change that beneficiary at any time. Beneficiary designations being the biggest way that you can help your clients. Takes 5 minutes, make sure all their accounts are right, and getting fancy in there with 50% to charity, 50% to Susie, contingent beneficiaries of these, per stirpies, per capita, however you want to go. So you can mix it up however you want with that. So income tax deduction is going to be limited based on my adjusted gross income, and limited based on what it is I'm giving. Is it cash? Is it long-term capital gain, or whatever? We'll get into those percentages. Gift tax deduction, estate tax deduction. So I have that lifetime exclusion right now of my 13.9 million, where it'll likely be extended next year, and we won't have that sunset provision dropping it down to 7 million. But I'm reducing that. That doesn't count towards my lifetime exclusion. I could give $1 billion to charity, and I'm not facing any estate or gift tax consequences for that. So how much can I deduct on my income? Depends what I gave and who I gave it to. Exactly the same for the 501c3, those public organizations, and the private foundation that is operating. Non-operating private foundation is going to be a little bit less. So 60% of AGI if I'm giving cash to either the 501c3 or the operating foundation, but only 30% for the non-operating. So you can see a little bit more, basically add 20 to 30% for what we're giving to the not the non-operating. If the amount I gave is more than I can deduct this year, I can carry that forward and maybe be able to take advantage of it then. So maybe planning when you're giving to the charities. In order to take that income tax deduction, it has to be a complete gift. So that example I gave a minute ago of the life insurance with a revocable beneficiary, that's not a completed gift. They may never receive it. I may decide I don't like that charity anymore, change it to another charity, or maybe my family dynamics change. I've adopted a child, I've remarried, there's kids. For whatever reason, I want the beneficiary to be non-charitable or something else. Substantiation requirements, I have to prove that I actually gave something to the charity. IRS isn't going to worry about small dollar amounts, but when I get into higher dollar amounts, they want some sort of verification that I actually did give something to that charity. I mentioned that standard deduction before. If I'm not going to use the standard deduction, I'm itemizing. If I'm itemizing, that's where the substantiation comes in. If I'm going to be under that $13,000, whatever the standard deduction is each year, your client's going to be in each year, then it doesn't matter. Then we're not having to worry about tracking all this stuff. So to provide the IRS that substantiation, to let them know, yes, I actually did give to the charity. Under 250, cancel check, cool. 250 to 500, I also need the organization to say, yes, I gave them this stuff. This is added up over all the different things. I can't have a bunch of different $10 donations to the same organization. You take something to the thrift store, they usually give you a blank receipt to write in whatever amount you want. So kind of loose on that. But that's only going to allow me to go up to $500. So if I'm going to try to say I gave $1,000 to Goodwill, then I'm going to have additional documentation showing that this is what it's worth. With all of these, if I have that hard to value asset like art, antique, something like that, I might want to also submit an appraisal for it. And so what can we give to them? Different ways that we can strategize based on our clients' needs and their goals of, early on this semester we talked about effective and efficient. Effective, maybe it doesn't matter. I really want to give $1 million to this organization right now because they need those funds right now to, build a new hospital wing, to do a whatever, and I really want it to happen now. I don't care if I'm not going to be able to take these full deductions or the other things. But ideally, we're both effective, get it to the right place when they want it, and efficient, where I am paying as little in taxes as possible, as little in these different administrative costs. So outright gifts of cash and property. Cash, easy to see, they love it. The different property, gave the examples of the related and unrelated use. We've also had the idea of what assets have appreciated more, or what is going to appreciate over the next 50 years before I think I'll die. Those things I can get out of my estate. Charitable bequests. So with a bequest, it's not going to be a completed gift. I'm dead. Well, I will be dead when it happens. So for that, the estate has that unlimited charitable deduction. It's going to reduce my taxable estate. If I don't have a taxable estate, like most estates are not taxable, it's not giving me any tax advantage now. Those qualified retirement plans, I talked about that already, where instead of taking my required minimum distribution, I have that required minimum distribution go directly to the charity, and it's going to act as if I just didn't have that ordinary income, so I'm not facing taxes. Split interest, we had our charitable remainder and charitable lead gifts. Split meaning it's split between a charitable and non-charitable beneficiary. So I can set it up where maybe it's benefiting me or a loved one and the charity. The remainder and lead are just like they sound. With the charitable remainder, I'm getting, let's say it's for me, I set it up where the dollars are in the trust, I can't change it, but I'm getting a benefit from it each year for the next 10 years, for the next 20 years, for life. And whatever's left over goes to the charity of my choice. Charitable lead, just the opposite. I'm gonna give some sort of stream of payments, income, could be an annuity, to the trust for a certain period of years, and whatever, whenever that term ends, that 10 years. So with the charity, now I need a specific term, whereas with the non-charitable, the remainder, I could set that up for life. With the charitable lead, I have to have a cutoff time because the charity could live for 1,000 years. So charitable lead, I set that 10-year term or whatever term. After that term is up, then it goes to the non-charitable beneficiary. And you can set different strings up for the non-charitable beneficiary. So the life insurance, charity is a revocable beneficiary. I can't deduct, I can't do anything because I can change that at any time. Giving my life insurance policy to the charity, well, what is the cash surrender value? What's the interpolated terminal reserve of that life insurance contract? If it's term, premiums are going to have to continue to be paid, and it's worth nothing right now. There's only going to be a death benefit when whoever the insured is passes away. And then finally, the charity can purchase a policy, a brand new policy rather than me giving an existing one. Charitable remainder, brought that up, whatever's left over. We also have these specific requirements of the annuity to myself can only be maximum 50%. So it's up to me how much do I want to take, and based on that, that's going to impact how much I'm actually able to make a deduction. So this will count as a completed gift because notice down here we have this bottom part where we're going to do some tests. We don't have a crystal ball, but the idea is at least a certain percentage, 10% is going to go to the charity, and there is less than a 5% chance that the corpus, the original amount that I put in, is going to be gone. So life, we're up to 20 years for the charitable remainder, because charity's getting it after me, where for the charitable lead, you can't do that. We talked about crats and cruts and grats and gruts. Same idea there, that A, the annuity, I am calculating that when I create it. So I'm gonna get the same amount every year for whatever the term is, whether it's life or a fixed term. With the U, it's a unit trust, and it has to be revalued every year. So thinking about that, with the A, the annuity, I can't put additional dollars in. It's done, I can't put any other assets in this trust. It's fixed to this amount because that's what we calculated the annuity on one time. With the U, I'm paying for the privilege of being able to put in more assets, being able to put in something else, because we're recalculating what the annuity will be every single year. That additional cost is why most people don't use it. So we're more likely to see a CRAT or a GRAT because it's cheaper to do. If I want to add more assets, I can just create a completely separate trust. Reason for charitable lead, I don't need the dollars now, so I'm doing great. I've got this high income. I want to take a deduction now. And also I think that what I'm putting in it is, let's say I bought a bunch of NVIDIA early on. I think it's going to appreciate a bunch, but we're basing what goes to the charity right now with this charitable lead based on the value today. So value today, maybe it's lower. We can calculate for the next 10 years, for the next 20 years, this goes to the charity, and then afterwards, when NVIDIA or whatever combination of assets that I think is going to appreciate a lot is appreciated to a much higher point, now the rest of it is going to my loved one, to my grandchild, to my friend, to myself, to whoever, for the rest of their life with whatever strings I put on it. So I took all of that highly appreciated asset out of my estate. Or highly expecting appreciated asset. So going on, so that was the charitable, unlimited charitable deduction chapter. Going on to the marital, this one's more straightforward because it's unlimited. During life, I'm not making a gift to spouse. We're treated as a single economic unit by the IRS. So yes, you can buy your significant other whatever presents, birthday, anniversary. IRS doesn't care about that. They look at you as a single economic unit. When you pass away, unlimited the amount that you can give to your spouse, and that's going to reduce your gross estate by whatever that amount is. We also had the idea of portability, and that's actually in a later chapter, but portability just for spouse. This year I have that 13.9 million that I can give away without incurring any estate taxes, meaning my credit is 5 point something million, which would be the taxes on that 13.9 million. What I can do is for any unused portion, and it could be the full 13.9 million, my executor can pass that on to my spouse. So now they have my 13.9 million that wasn't used, or whatever portion of it wasn't used, plus they're going to be able to stack their own amount whatever year they pass away on top of it. It costs nothing to give it. It's not a taxable event. It's just, hey, maybe they admit something cool, maybe they somehow come into a bunch of money, whatever it is. Now it's less likely that the government is going to get any dollars. And you could be broke, you die with an estate that can't even pay off all the creditors, you can still put this portability in, and now there's 13.9 million for spouse and spouse only. Idea behind the marital deduction, the government's going to get their money at some point. So you're a single economic unit, they don't care if they don't get estate tax from you, they'll get it when spouse passes away. But spouse can spend it, enjoy it, they'll be paying sales taxes, all these other things. So government will somehow get their dollars. Hang on before I go into life insurance. One other thing about the marital deduction, that's specifically for the citizen spouse. Non-citizen, we have the 190,000, or we can create that qualified domestic trust. Qualified domestic trust means the trust lives here in the United States, so should non-citizen spouse go back to their home country after your death, the taxes that that trust pays are staying in the U.S. All right, so life insurance, we want some sort of liquidity with the estate. This helps out our loved ones if we have joint accounts. I gave the example in class where we had a client pass away and the wife who survived, we had streams of payments coming out of their joint account. Once Fidelity would be officially notified that one of them had passed away, that account is frozen until they know where it's going, until the estate is settled. That could be as short as 3 months, it could be up to 2 years, maybe longer if there's people arguing about the estate. So you want to have a separate account for that surviving spouse so that we have that stream of payments that they're used to living with. So life insurance, we want to make sure that they have that liquidity. This is one way to have that, for the executor to say, okay, we can pay out the life insurance now. I've got these dollars for taxes, for whatever. Taxes got to be paid first. We got to pay debtors before paying out some of these other things. But this gives them something that they can pay out more quickly. Reasons for it: they still need to live, they still need to eat, keep a roof over their heads. Maybe you've got minor children that want to go to college. We've got different ways we can pay for college: Coverdell, 529, Roth IRAs even, and life insurance. So for that young family that maybe isn't earning as much, but they've got several young children, should one pass away, you want the comfort maybe of knowing that kids will be okay. There will be an education. education. And maybe I want the life insurance to pay into a trust so that I know these dollars will be used for education, and there's some sort of strings on that where they have to maintain a certain GPA, they only get it for so long, and after that it can go to some other loved one or to whoever I want it to go to. To make sure we're going to be able to require, create or sustain family wealth. Do you remember what that trust was called that was supposed to live for generations and generations? Yeah. So a dynasty trust, I want to build in that flexibility of we can change the trustee, we can move it to another state. We talk about the rule against perpetuities. I want to make sure that my trust is not going to be subject to the rule of perpetuities, and if it lives in Alaska, it's not. So the trust can live in any state. I have my life insurance pay into that trust, so now I've got this trust that can live hopefully forever, and I've built in enough flexibility in the trust documents that allows the trustees to be replaced, to be moved as needed based on changing laws and government's going at it. Government's changing what they're doing. Those buy-sell agreements, we talk about this for small businesses. So small business, I want to ensure that it's able to smoothly continue after I die or after my business partner dies. The number of policies we need if we're doing a cross purchase is N times N minus 1. So in the total number of partners in this business, we've got 5 times 5 minus 1, 20 policies. So I'm buying a policy on every other partner, they're buying a policy on every other partner as well. You're not buying a policy on yourself. Idea is, I pass away, life insurance is able to buy out my portion, so my spouse, my heirs, whoever they might be, are able to get paid out what that value was. Entity purchase, the business owns those policies rather than the individuals, and then there's the hybrid where we wait and see, we decide which one's going to be more advantageous at that time. Parties to life insurance, owner owns the policy, the insured, they pass away, then it pays out to whoever the beneficiary is. I can own a policy on my own life, and if I don't name a beneficiary, it's going to my estate. So ideally, we are mixing that up and not owning policies on ourselves other than the ones through work, but we're trying to keep it out of the estate. Taxes, $1 million policy, pays to spouse, cool, no taxes on that $1 million. Where we do get the taxes are the interest dollars that are earned before the policy is actually paid out. So if I die today, it may take another month or two for insurance company to verify, okay, here's the death certificate, we processed it, but in that 60 days, in that however many days it takes for them to actually pay out, those dollars have earned some interest. That interest would be taxable to the recipient, where that is. We can pay an annuity out, and this is great for settlement planning. You call Mike Shunara because you got in a car accident and there's this big $1 million payout. Instead of taking the full $1 million now, maybe take a partial lump sum chunk to pay for your current medical costs, and then an income stream the rest of your life. That way you can escape some taxation, and you don't run the risk of spending it all now and not having that support later that you need. So same idea here with the life insurance. Maybe I want my loved one I want to know that my loved one is going to be able to continue receiving these dollars. There's no strings on it like there would be with a trust, but now I know that every month or every 6 months or every year, however I've set it up, they're going to get this payment. Maybe monthly best, because that way they can plan for bills and these other things, and I think that'll be safest. Policy dividends, so now we're getting into not a term policy, but some sort of universal variable, something where there's investments within the policy. policy surrendered, so now I get that dollars back because I already had full paid into it, or partially paid into it, paying taxes for that. With these 1035 exchanges, like to like, awesome, no issue. So that's across the board. If I exchange one life insurance policy for another, that's not a taxable event. I exchange one annuity for another. Cool, we're good. That modified endowment contract is I would say one for another, not a taxable event. Modified endowment contract is when somebody is basically using one of those universal variable something policy where they're choosing the investments as a way to sort of build their own Roth with no annual limits. So a Roth IRA, I'm limited based on my age of how much I can put in each year, and then it grows tax-free. I may not be eligible to contribute to a Roth because of income. So with a MEC, the modified endowment contract, what people were doing was saying, okay, well, I'll create this life insurance. I have no need for life insurance, maybe not very much. So I buy this life insurance policy, I invest the dollars, super risky, these are after-tax dollars, and then I take a loan from the life insurance plan. Life insurance company doesn't care. I can take as many loans as I want as long as there's that value in there. When I pass away or when the insured passes away, they're going to pay out, the death benefit minus whatever loan. So the life insurance company is whole. They don't really care what I'm doing with it. But the government was saying, no, you're treating this life insurance policy as a loophole to the Roth. You're able to put in as much as you want, invest however you want, borrow as much as you want, and none of that is causing taxes. So modified endowment contract looked at this and said, okay, if you're paying the full amount within a certain period of time, it's a modified endowment contract. You can still take advantage of that loophole. You just have to be patient and do it over more time. Okay, so life insurance, did anything else listed there? Tax-free, not a taxable event, 1035 exchange. Modified endowment contract, same to same, or annuity. With the annuity, it's only annuity to annuity. Anything else would be a taxable event. Other ways that we can look at the taxes of life insurance. I am chronically ill, meaning I'm not going to get better, but I'm also not expected to die right away. Or I'm terminally ill and I'm going to die. I've had doctors look at me, I've got a tumor in my brain, I've got a year to live. In this case, I can reach out to the insurance company and say, hey, here's my doctor's note, give me some of these dollars now because I could really use them. Notice that bottom one. For either chronically, I can't do those activities of daily living, at least two of them, or terminally ill. If I recover for whatever reason, new medical technology, or just, I don't know, I start eating clean and something happens where I don't pass away then, or I recover, it's fine. The government is happy, good for you, you got help. Different liquidity needs at death. Last medical costs, and here, if I'm the executor, I have the choice of potentially claiming this on the decedent's final income tax return. Probably the better choice because it's probably not a taxable estate. If it is going to be a taxable estate, I want to claim it on the estate because that's probably going to be a higher amount. But either way, you got to look at where the client is. Idea being, we have this progressive income tax schedule where I'm paying less in taxes if I'm not making very much. If I am in this situation where I've got these high last medical costs before I passed away, I probably wasn't earning a lot of income at that time. So if I have a big taxable estate, estates are taxed at the highest rate. They get up to high rates pretty quickly. So maybe I want to take it there instead. But if I don't have a taxable estate, even if I'm only paying 10-15% for my tax bracket, I still want to reduce it from the ordinary income tax, so fewer dollars to the government, more to my loved ones. We're effective and we're efficient. Funeral costs. And this was that thing that you could prepay, so that, you know, I've already picked out the plot, I've picked out the casket, now my loved ones don't have to go through that bereavement plus having to figure out these financial considerations at the same time. That side letter of instruction, not legally binding, but I could let my wishes be known that this is how I want to be buried, where I want to be buried, the food I want served, the music I want played, anything I want in there. I can even set aside some dollars for that, but not legally binding, so they don't actually have to do any of the things I put in that side letter of instruction. And so that's that informally through written instructions. The formally was I created that contract, I prepaid for everything with the funeral home. Figuring stuff out, all those administrative fees. If I have different property in different estates, those administrative costs are going higher. If I am the named executor, I have the choice of saying, no, I don't want to take this as fees. So I've got 2 brothers and a sister. Let's say my dad is splitting it up equally between the 4 of us, and I'm the executor. So if it's going to be 25% each, I can also take some executor fees to compensate myself, because it's a lot of work. Or I could say no thanks, because that would be taxed as income. It'll just be easier, split it up among my siblings, and then what I receive is 100% not taxed versus reducing all that by a little bit and paying taxes on that. So different reasons why you might want to do either. Generation skipping transfer taxes we'll cover after this exam. To get those dollars to pay taxes, to have that liquidity to pay these things, we can sell stuff from the estate, and then we have that idea of life insurance. With the irrevocable life insurance trust, I want to not require that the trust itself buys anything from the estate or require it to loan money to the estate, because if I do either one of those things, if I say it must, now the 100% of the value of that ILA is included in the gross estate. If instead I put the language of it can, cool, it can buy the house so that I don't have to sell it right now when the market is terrible because the family needs liquidity, because I need to pay taxes or administrative fees or whatever. Or just the trust loans money to the estate so I can handle these immediate needs, and then the estate pays back after I sell the house or something that was harder to sell. And I could do both. I could sell the house and loan. I could have the trust buy anything at all from the estate. These tax advantage accounts, now we're going to look at one of these tax deferred, where if I were to take it as an individual, it's ordinary income. The estate rates says more compressed. That means I jump up to higher levels sooner. So it's going to be more expensive there. Ideally, the decedent, recognizing that, they're taking these dollars during life and funding life insurance. Keeping in mind that if that life insurance policy is new, as in less than 3 years, that 3-year clawback is going to bring it into the gross estate either way. Valuation of assets. Fair market value on the date of death. We looked at those in frequently traded stocks where we had to try to figure out what that value was as best as we could, and we may need somebody to come in and value those assets for the antiques, for the real estate, for the things like that. For a 401k, here was the dollar value on the date of death. That one will be simple, or savings accounts or anything like that. Valuation date. I'm almost always going to want date of death, even if I think the estate is artificially high right now, because I want my loved ones to have that higher basis. They're going to take it that artificially high basis right now, unless I have a taxable estate. If I have a taxable estate, I can elect to take the alternate valuation date. So only if the estate is both artificially high right now for some reason and the estate is taxable can I use the alternate valuation date. Alternate valuation date lets me take a later date because of that, and if I elect it, it has to be less. So if I'm wrong, I want to elect for this alternate valuation date of 6 months from now, and it ends up being the same amount or higher, I'm going back to the date of death. I can't do it unless it has come down. This isn't going to apply to something I sell in the interim. So date of death to 6 months from now, I sell the house 2 months later, that's the value of the house, that's what we're including. Wasting, depreciating assets, they're going to be valued at date of death. Disclaimer, we saw that as something you could put into will. It doesn't matter whether it's there or not. Whoever you list in the will can say, no thanks, I don't want it. You can see this with maybe a state where mom is getting too much, where we're not taking advantage of our $13.9 million. So mom can say, I'll disclaim it, but mom can't direct where it goes. She can't say, well, I don't need that asset, I want my son to have it, or I want whoever to have it. If I disclaim, I can say, I don't want it, and I can look to see where it will go. If it's not going to the person I want, and I really want my brother to get this asset, I should just take it and then give it to him. Because I can't direct where it goes. I'm just saying in writing, no thanks, I don't want this asset. And then it goes according to whatever the will or beneficiary designation or whatever says. Other income tax issues. So, pass away, you still have to file your individual, married filing jointly, whatever it is, income tax. There's also the estate tax return. So some of that, as the executor, I can choose to go to the estate, and some to the individual. So notice there the 1040 or 706. 1040 is that individual, 706 is the estate tax return. So I'm choosing where to take those. I have the option of choosing a joint or separate final return on the individual level. I almost always want the joint return because that's going to be better. That's going to have lower rates. Yeah, so we have the option there. Probably want married filing jointly. Surviving spouse now has some options with what they're doing. I can be a widower for 2 years and potentially longer than that if I have a dependent child in the home. Once I no longer have a dependent child, and just like we saw with child support, if I have a special needs child and they're still dependent, I can continue to claim that longer. Afterwards, I have to be head of household. Same thing for the special needs. So head of household as long as I've got that special needs child. Portability, I talked about. Divorce planning. We looked at the engagement ring and whether it is a complete gift or a conditional gift, conditional upon an actual marriage, and who gets it. In Alabama, if there's no wrongdoing, the person that calls it off does not keep the ring. So if you received a ring and just decided, no, I'm not going to do it, you'd give the ring back. If you gave the ring and said, no, I'm not going to do it, they would keep the ring. So whoever calls it off is the one that doesn't get the ring. And this is going to also be viewed, like, so if you do take it to court, ideally you've been able to communicate and work it out between the two of you. But if it does go to court, the court might look at this as a completed gift, and they might also look at wrongdoing. Fault and no fault. For a fault divorce, I have to prove some element of wrongdoing, most common being infidelity. For no fault, we're saying irreconcilable differences. Depending on how we're divorcing, fault or no fault, the judge is going to look at the division of assets a little bit differently, and they have a lot of discretion to do so. Prenuptial agreement, judge is going to view this as, okay, you both voluntarily entered into it, you disclosed all of your assets. If I left some account out, that could make the full thing void. And so now the judge is going to look, oh, you tried to hide this, so I'm going to take more from your side and give more to your spouse. But for the most part, the judge, like if this was all above board, they're gonna look at that prenuptial agreement and say, okay, this is what you guys agreed to. Cool, this is your separate asset, all the growth on your business, all these things. And you can write all kinds of clauses in there. Should spouse be the one that's in the wrong, I get 100%, you're getting nothing. That might be looked at as the judge, that's not quite fair. So we can put a lot of stuff in there, but they're gonna look at it some to make sure that the person gets something. Valuing those assets, this is where maybe you can help the judge understand that a Roth and a traditional IRA should be valued differently because of how they'll be taxed later. We may need to hire someone to appraise different assets to make sure the value of the house, the value of the jewelry, the whatever is fair. Child custody and whatever support is going to be looked at whatever the best interest of the child is first. That's the primary consideration. Where will the child be best off? And different factors that are going to influence that are going to be: do you have space for the child? What are the living arrangements? Do you have a studio apartment or do you have a house? Do you live where the child is right now, or did you move off to Wyoming and you're in a ranch in the middle of nowhere? Was there substance abuse, addiction, domestic violence, anything like that? But it all comes back to that primary factor of what's the best interest of the child. Support, they're going to look at what are the incomes of the people,